This week's portion from the Torah is the portion of Lech Lecha. And the Lord said to Abraham, Vayomer Hashem el Avram, Lech Lecha me'artzecha, u'mimoladetecha u'mibet avicha. The Lord said, go forth from your native land, Abraham, from your father's house, El haaretz asher ar'eka, to the land that I will show you. Shabbat Shalom. Great to have all of you with me for the weekly Torah talk. And this week we're going to talk about the impact of Abraham, the great patriarch of the Jewish people. And if you think about it for a moment, the impact was amazing because over 3 billion Christians in the world revere Abraham, and nearly 2 billion Muslims revere Abraham. And of course, for us, 14 million Jewish people throughout the world, he is our first patriarch, the one who gave us the legacy of ethical monotheism among many other contributions of Abraham. So let's talk for a moment about Abraham's impact as a human being, because I think that's where the lessons can be derived. Someone who as a human being is acting with a deep moral sense of justice and righteousness, that's the kind of person we all aspire to be, in that model of the great patriarch Abraham. He had a tent that was open on all sides, according to the Midrash, so he could welcome anyone into his tent and offer them shade and refreshment in the desert. And that concept of hospitality is a very critical part of the legacy of Abraham. Of course, of great importance was the covenant, the promise between God and the Jewish people, signified by the act of circumcision of the males. And this concept of circumcision, again, is part of a covenant that connects the Jewish people to the Abrahamic impact. The Abrahamic impact is also seen in the way he handled the situation with his nephew Lot, who was in the evil cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. And when he rescued Lot, he took that action, that brave action of standing up for family and loved ones and for the value system he believed in. When he argued with God over the destruction of those evil cities, and he said, but Lord, what if there are 10 righteous people? What if there are 50 righteous people among the inhabitants of Sodom and Gomorrah? Will you destroy the good with the evil? And then he negotiated down to 10, and for the sake of 10, God would spare those evil cities. So Abraham's intercession on behalf of justice, on behalf of doing the right thing, on being guided by a moral principle. And it all began way back in the early chapters of Abraham's life, when he smashed the idols, according to the Midrash, in his father's shop, when he journeyed. And in fact, those opening words of the Torah portion that I read, Lech lecha me'artzecha u'mimoladetecha u'mibeit avicha el haaretz asher areka ve'escha legoy gadol ve'avarech mevarachecha u'mekalelecha aor ve'nivrechu becha kol mishpechot ha'adama. Go forth into yourself, Abraham, to a land that I will show you. Leave behind your homeland, your birthplace, your father's house, and go to that promised land. And as you journey, know that those who bless you, I will bless, and those who curse you, I shall curse, and you shall be a blessing to all of the inhabitants of the earth. That concept of being a blessing to humanity is part of the mission of the Jewish people, who revere Abraham as our first and most precious patriarch. So when you think about Abraham, think about the idea of blessing, being a blessing to those around you, not just in your words, but also in your deeds. And that example will guide us and lead us into the future. I take a moment now to tell you about an event that happened to me this week that really made me very sad. I attended a memorial service at the home of the new Consul General of France in Los Angeles, and in her home we held a memorial service for a school teacher, Samuel Paty, who was brutally murdered, beheaded by Muslim extremists in the city of Paris, in the northern suburb of the city of Paris. And the man who killed him was killed, of course, by the police, but the idea that on social media, those people who objected to what Samuel Paty was teaching, and he was teaching about the terrorist killing of the journalist in Charlie Hebdo because they had shown a cartoon of the Prophet Muhammad, a caricature, that he should be brutally murdered for teaching this episode is just monstrous. It's incomprehensible. That's not the kind of humanity we strive for. We have to recognize that all of us, being part of that Abrahamic tradition, have a responsibility to demand justice for the way each and every one of us will be treated. So I hope we can take that message to heart as we remember Samuel Paty and as we remember all of those who have been the victims of mindless, horrific terrorism, and say to ourselves, no, we will live up to the finest examples that our patriarch Abraham set for each and every one of us. Shabbat Shalom.